Picture this, you're living in the 1600s and everyone's going bananas over tulips. Yes, you heard that right, tulips. Those colorful, delicate flowers we casually pick up at the grocery store or plant in our gardens were once the hottest commodity in the Netherlands. In the early 17th century, a floral frenzy took over the Dutch. Tulips, these exotic and vibrant flowers, newly introduced from the Ottoman Empire, quickly became a status symbol. The more exotic and unique the tulip, the more desirable it was. Think of it as the 17th century version of the latest iPhone or designer handbag. To own a tulip during this time was akin to flaunting a diamond necklace at a gala or parking a shiny new sports car in your driveway. It was all about the bragging rights, the prestige, the status. People were literally trading lands, livestock, and yes, even their homes, all for the sake of owning a tulip bulb. Now you might be thinking, but they're just flowers. Well, back in the day, these weren't just any flowers. Each tulip was unique, a living piece of art, a showstopper in any garden. And the Dutch, they were utterly spellbound. The tulip craze was in full swing, and it seemed like everyone was swept up in the excitement. But let's pause for a moment and take a step back. Imagine if we, in the 21st century, were to start trading our homes and cars for, let's say, avocados. Sounds absurd, right? That's because it is. But that's exactly what was happening during Tulip Mania. It was a wild, whimsical, and utterly irrational time. But hey, trends can be like that, right? One minute, we're all sipping on kale smoothies, and the next, we're trading our life savings for a piece of avocado toast. And so, the humble tulip bulb became the Gucci belt of the 17th century. It was a time of grandeur, extravagance, and pure obsession. But as we all know, what goes up must come down, and the tulip craze was no exception. But that, dear listeners, is a tale for the next scene. Now you might be thinking, surely this tulip thing can't get any crazier. Hold my beer. Picture this. We are in the heart of the Dutch Golden Age, and tulips have become the new gold. Exotic varieties are selling for prices that would make your head spin. Imagine, if you will, a world where flowers aren't just flowers anymore. They're a form of currency. A single bulb could buy you a riverfront home in Amsterdam or a year's supply of cheese. That's right, folks. The Dutch were literally putting their money where their mouths are. It wasn't just the wealthy indulging their green thumbs either. Nope, everyone from farmers to blacksmiths was getting in on the tulip trade. The entire country was gripped by tulip fever. It was like the Beatles' mania, but with petals and stems instead of mop tops and guitars. But as we all know, what goes up must come down. And boy, did it come down. As winter turned to spring in 1637, the tulip market collapsed faster than a flan in a cupboard. Prices dropped quicker than a hot potato, and suddenly, those who traded their life savings for a handful of bulbs found themselves in a prickly situation. It was like a game of musical chairs, only the music stopped playing and everyone was left holding a bunch of wilted flowers. The market was flooded with tulips, but nobody wanted them anymore. People who had been wealthy one day found themselves flat broke the next. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, lawsuits began to pile up as buyers refused to pay the high prices they promised for bulbs. The courts were clogged up like Amsterdam's canals during tulip season. It was chaos, pure, unadulterated chaos. And just like that, the tulip bubble had burst. Turns out, flowers aren't a stable investment. Who knew? So, did Tulip Mania turn the Netherlands into a floral wasteland? Not quite. Now, let's debunk the myths and misconceptions about Tulip Mania. The story most of us know comes from Charles Mackay's 1841 book, Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. According to Mackay, the whole of Dutch society was so obsessed with tulips that when the market crashed, it sent the country spiraling into economic ruin. A tale of madness, greed, and spectacular fall, right? Well, not quite. Enter Anne Goldgar, a modern historian who decided to dig deeper. Goldgar found that Mackay's account, while entertaining, was more fiction than fact. The reality was much less dramatic and a whole lot more nuanced. According to Golgar, the tulip trade was not a widespread phenomenon. It was mostly confined to a small group of wealthy merchants and artisans, the kind of people who had the means to gamble on luxury goods like tulips. So, when the market did crash, it was these folks who took the hit, not the entire Dutch economy. Golgar's research also showed that very few people actually went bankrupt because of the tulip crash. Yes, some lost money, but it was far from the societal ruin that Mackay described. The real damage was not to people's wallets, but to their reputations. In the tight-knit communities of the Dutch Golden Age, trust was everything. When the tulip market collapsed, it was the broken promises and lost trust that left the deepest scars. So, Tulip Mania was less an economic disaster and more a crisis of confidence. In short, Tulip Mania was not a society-wide epidemic of flower fever. It was a speculative bubble confined to a small, wealthy segment of society. When it burst, it left a trail of broken trust and bruised egos, but it didn't bring the Dutch economy to its knees. So, while Tulip Mania might not have led to the downfall of Dutch society, it certainly did leave a few red faces. Today, Tulip Mania is more than just a weird blip in history. It's become a symbol of the irrationality that can take hold in financial markets, a story that economists and investors alike turn to when bubbles form in the economy. Just like the tulip bulbs of the 17th century, we've seen modern-day equivalents take center stage. Think of the dot-com bubble of the late 90s or the housing bubble that led to the financial crisis in 2008. And who can ignore the recent frenzy around cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin? Each of these have shown us that when the hype outpaces the reality, a market correction is usually just around the corner. In essence, Tulip Mania was the original get-rich-quick scheme, a cautionary tale of what can happen when speculation runs wild. And so the tale of Tulip Mania serves as a colorful reminder that sometimes the market can be as unpredictable as, well, the Dutch weather.